A Midsummer Night's Dream. There was a law in the city of Athens which gave to its citizens the power of compelling their daughters to marry whomever the parents wished. Upon a daughter's refusal to marry the man her father had chosen to be her husband, the father was empowered by this law to cause her to be put to death. But as the fathers do not often desire the death of their own daughters, even though they do happen to prove a little stubborn, this law was seldom or never carried out, though perhaps the young ladies of that city were not unfrequently threatened by their parents with the terrors of it. There was one instance, however, of an old man whose name was Aegeus, who actually did come before Theseus, at that time the reigning Duke of Athens. He complained that his daughter, Hermia, whom he had commanded to marry Demetrius, a young man of a noble Athenian family, refused to obey him because she loved another young Athenian named Lysander. Aegeus demanded justice of Theseus and desired that his cruel law might be enforced against his daughter. Hermia pleaded in excuse for her disobedience that Demetrius had already declared love for her dear friend Helena, and that Helena was madly in love with him. But this honorable reason, which Hermia gave for not obeying her father's command, did not move the stern Aegeus. Theseus, though a great and merciful prince, had no power to change the laws of his country. Therefore, he could only give Hermia 4 days to think things over. At the end of that time, if she still refused to marry Demetrius, she was to be put to death. When Hermia was dismissed from the presence of the Duke, she went to her lover Lysander and told him the peril she was in. She declared that she must either give him up and marry Demetrius or lose her life in 4 days. Lysander was greatly upset at hearing this bad news, but he recalled that he had an aunt who lived at some distance from Athens in a place where the cruel law could not be put in force against Hermia, this law not extending beyond the boundaries of the city. He therefore proposed to Hermia that she should steal out of her father's house that night and go with him to his aunt's house, where he would marry her. "I will meet you," said Lysander, "in the wood a few miles outside the city, that delightful wood where we have so often walked with Helena in the pleasant month of May." To this proposal Hermia joyfully agreed, and she told no one of her intended flight but her friend Helena. Helena, as maidens will do foolish things for love, very ungratefully resolved to go and tell this to Demetrius, though she could hope no benefit from betraying her friend's secret but the poor pleasure of following her faithless lover to the wood. For she well knew that Demetrius would go there in pursuit of Hermia. The wood in which Lysander and Hermia proposed to meet was the favorite haunt of those little beings known by the name of fairies. Oberon, the king, and Titania, the queen of the fairies, with all their tiny train of followers, held their midnight revels in this wood. Between this little king and queen of sprites, there happened at this time a sad disagreement. They never met by moonlight in the shady walks of this pleasant wood, but they kept up their quarrel till all of their fairy elves would creep into acorn cups and hide themselves for fear. The cause of this unhappy disagreement was Titania's refusal to give Oberon a little changeling boy whose mother had been Titania's friend. Upon her death, the fairy queen had stolen the child from its nurse and brought him up in the woods. During the night on which the lovers were to meet in this wood, Titania was walking with some of her maids of honor, which she met Oberon, attended by his train of fairy courts. During the night on which the lovers were to meet in this wood, Titania was walking with some of her maids of honor, when she met Oberon, attended by his train of fairy courtiers. "We are ill met by moonlight, proud Titania," said the fairy king. The queen replied, "What, jealous Oberon, is it you? Fairies, skip hence. I have forsworn his company." "Tarry, rash fairy," said Oberon. "Am I not thy lord?" "Why does Titania cross her Oberon? Give me your little changeling boy to be my page." "Set your heart at rest," answered the queen. "Your whole fairy kingdom buys not the boy of me." She then left her lord in great anger. "Well, go your way," said Oberon. "Before the morning dawns, I will torment you for this injury." Oberon then sent for Puck, his chief favorite and privy counselor. Puck, or as he was sometimes called, Robin Goodfellow, was a shrewd and connivish sprite who used to play comical pranks in the neighboring villages. Sometimes he would get into the dairies and skim the milk. Sometimes he would plunge his light and airy form into the butter churn, and while he was dancing his fantastic shape in the churn, in vain the dairymaid would labor to change her cream into butter. The village swains had no better success. Whenever Puck chose to play his pranks in the brewing copper, the ale was sure to be spoiled. When a few good neighbors were met to drink some comfortable ale together, Puck would jump into the bowl of ale in the likeness of a roasted crab, and when old Goody was going to drink, he would bob against her lips and spill the ale all over her withered chin. Soon after, when the same old dame was gravely seating herself to tell her neighbors a sad and melancholy story, Puck would slip her three-legged stool from under her, and down toppled the poor old woman. Then the old gossips would hold their sides and laugh at her, and swear they had never wasted a merrier hour. "Come hither, Puck," said Oberon to this little merry wanderer of the night. "Fetch me the flower which maids call love in idleness. The juice of that little purple flower laid on the eyelids of those who sleep will make them, when they awake, dote on the first thing they see. Some of the juice of that flower I will drop on the eyelids of my Titania when she's asleep, and the first thing she looks upon when she opens her eyes she will fall in love with, even though it be a lion or a bear, a meddling monkey, or a busy ape. Then, before I take this charm of her sight, which I can do with another charm I know of, I will make her give me that boy to be my page." Puck, who loved mischief with all his heart, was highly amused with this intended prank of his master, and ran to seek the flower. While Oberon was waiting the return of Puck, he observed Demetrius and Helena enter the wood. He overheard Demetrius reproaching Helena for following him, after many unkind words on his part and gentle appeals from Helena, reminding him of his former love and declarations of true faith to her. He left her, as he said, to the mercy of the wild beast. At this, she ran after him as swiftly as she could. The fairy king, who was always friendly to true lovers, felt great compassion for Helena. Perhaps, as Lysander said, they used to walk by moonlight in this pleasant wood. Oberon might have seen Helena in those happy times when she was beloved by Demetrius. Nevertheless, when Puck returned with the little purple flower, Oberon said to his favorite, "Take a part of this flower. There has been a sweet Athenian lady here who is in love with a disdainful youth. If you find him sleeping, drop some of the love juice in his eyes, but manage to do it when she is near him so that the first thing he sees when he awakes may be this despised lady. You will know the man by the Athenian garments which he wears." Puck promised to manage this matter very skillfully. Then Oberon went, unperceived by Titania, to her bower, where she was preparing to go to rest. Her fairy bower was a bank where grew wild thyme, cowslips, and sweet violets under a canopy of woodbine, musk roses, and eglantine. There Titania always slept some part of the night, her coverlet the enamel skin of a snake, which, though a small mantle, was wide enough to wrap a fairy in. He found Titania giving orders to her fairies, telling them how they were to employ themselves while she slept. "Some of you," said Her Majesty, "must kill cankers in the musk rosebuds, and some wage war with the bats for their leathern wings, to make my small elves' coats. Some of you keep watch that the clamorous owl that nightly hoots come not near me, but first sing me to sleep." Then they began to sing this song: "You spotted snakes with double tongue, thorny hedgehogs, be not seen. Newts and blind worms do no wrong, come not near our fairy queen. Philomel with melody, sing in our sweet lullaby. Lulla lulla lullaby, lulla lulla lullaby. Never harm, nor spell, nor charm, come our lovely lady nigh. So good night with lullaby." When the fairies had sung their queen asleep with this pretty lullaby, they left her to perform the important services she had bid them. Oberon then softly drew near his Titania and dropped some of the love juice on her eyelids, saying, "What thou seest when thou dost awake, do it for thy true love's sake." But to return to Hermia, who made her escape from her father's house that night to avoid the death she was doomed to for refusing to marry Demetrius. When she entered the wood, she found her dear Lysander waiting for her to conduct her to his aunt's house. But before they had passed half through the wood, Hermia was so much fatigued that Lysander, who was very careful of this dear lady, who had proved her affection for him by even risking her life for his sake, persuaded her to rest till morning on a bank of soft moss. Then, lying down himself on the ground at some little distance, they soon fell fast asleep. Here they were found by Puck, who, seeing a handsome young man asleep, and perceiving that his clothes were made in the Athenian fashion, and that a pretty lady was sleeping near him, concluded that this must be the Athenian maid and her disdainful lover whom Oberon had sent him to seek. He naturally enough conjectured that, as they were alone together, she must be the first thing he would see when he awoke. Without more ado, he proceeded to pour some of the juice of the little purple flower into his eyes. But it so happened that Helena came that way, and instead of Hermia, she was the first object Lysander beheld when he opened his eyes. Strange to relate, so powerful was the love charm. All his love for Hermia vanished away, and Lysander fell in love with Helena. Had he first seen Hermia when he awoke, the blunder Puck committed would have been of no importance, for he could not love that faithful lady too well. However, for poor Lysander to be forced by a fairy love charm to forget his own true Hermia and to run after another lady, leaving Hermia asleep quite alone in a wood at midnight, was a sad happening indeed. Thus, the misfortune happened. Helena, as has been before related, endeavored to keep pace with Demetrius when he ran away so rudely from her. However, she could not continue this unequal race long, men being always better runners in a long race than ladies. Helena soon lost sight of Demetrius, and, as she was wandering about, dejected and forlorn, she arrived at the place where Lysander was sleeping. "Ah," said she, "this is Lysander lying on the ground. Is he dead or asleep?" Then, gently touching him, she said, "Good sir, if you are alive, awake." Upon this, Lysander opened his eyes, and the love charm, beginning to work, immediately addressed her in words of exaggerated love and admiration. He told her she as much excelled Hermia in beauty as a dove does a raven, that he would run through fire for her sweet sake, and many more such lover-like speeches. Helena, which knowing Lysander was her friend, Hermia's lover, and that he was solemnly engaged to marry her, was outraged when she heard herself addressed in this manner, for she thought, as well she might, that Lysander was making fun of her. "Oh," said she, "why was I born to be mocked and scorned by everyone? Is it not enough, young man, that I can never get a sweet look or a kind word from Demetrius? But you, sir, must pretend in this disdainful manner to court me. I thought, Lysander, you were a lord of more true gentleness." Saying these words in great anger, she ran away, and Lysander followed her, quite forgetful of his own Hermia, who was still sleeping. When Hermia awoke, she was in a sad fright at finding herself alone. She wandered about the wood, not knowing what had become of Lysander, or which way to go to seek for him. In the meantime, Demetrius, not being able to find Hermia and his rival Lysander, and fatigued with his fruitless search, was observed by Oberon fast asleep. Oberon had learned by some questions he had asked of Puck that he had applied the love charm to the wrong person's eyes. Now, having found the person first intended, he touched the eyelids of the sleeping Demetrius with the love juice, and he instantly awoke, the first thing he saw being Helena. He, as Lysander had done before, began to address love speeches to her. Just at that moment, Lysander, followed by Hermia, for through Puck's unlucky mistake it had now become Hermia's turn to run after her lover, made his appearance. Then Lysander and Demetrius, both speaking together, made love to Helena, each being under the influence of the same potent charm. The astonished Helena thought that Demetrius, Lysander, and her once dear friend Hermia were all in a plot together to make her a laughingstock. Hermia was as much surprised as Helena. She knew not why Lysander and Demetrius, who both had loved her before, had now become the lovers of Helena. To Hermia, the matter seemed to be no jest. The ladies, who before had always been the dearest of friends, now began to quarrel rudely. "Unkind, Hermia," said Helena, "it is you have goaded Lysander on to vex me with false praises. As for your other lover Demetrius, who used almost to spurn me with his foot, have you not bid him call me goddess, nymph, rare, precious, and celestial? He will not speak thus to me, whom he hates, if you did not set him on to make fun of me. Unlike Hermia, to join with men in scorning your poor friend. Have you forgotten our school-day friendship? How often, Hermia, have we two, sitting on one cushion, both singing one song, with our needles working the same flower, both worked on the same sampler, growing up together like a double cherry, scarcely seeming parted. Hermia, it is not friendly in you, it is not maidenly to join with men in scorning your poor friend. I am amazed at your heated words, said Hermia. I scorn you not. It seems you scorn me. Ay, do, returned Helena. Keep it up. Pretend to be serious and make mouths at me when I turn my back. Then wink at each other and keep up your sport with me. If you had any pity, grace, or manners, you would not treat me thus. While Helena and Hermia were speaking these angry words to each other, Demetrius and Lysander left them to fight together in the wood for the love of Helena. When the ladies found the gentleman had left them, they too departed, and once more wandered weary in the wood in search of their lovers. As soon as they were gone, the Fairy King, who with little Puck had been listening to their quarrels, said to him, This is your negligence, Puck, or did you do this wilfully? Believe me, King of Shadows, answered Puck, it was a mistake. Did not you tell me I should know the man by his Athenian garments? However, I am not sorry this has happened, for I think this quarreling makes excellent sport. You heard, said Oberon, that Demetrius and Lysander have gone to seek a convenient place to fight in. I command you to overhang the night with a thick fog, and lead these quarrelsome lovers so astray in the dark that they shall not be able to find each other. Imitate each of their voices to the other, and with bitter taunts provoke them to follow you, while they think it is their rival's tongue they hear. See that you do this till they are so weary they can go no further. Then, when you find they are asleep, drop the juice of this other flower into Lysander's eyes, and when he awakes, he will forget his new love for Helena, and return to his old passion for Hermia. Then the two fair ladies may each be happy with the man she loves, and they will think all that has passed a troublesome dream. Get about this quickly, Puck, and I will go and see what sweet love my Titania has found. Titania was still sleeping. At that moment, Oberon saw a clown near her who had lost his way in the wood and was likewise asleep. This fellow, said he, shall be my Titania's true love, and clapping an ass's head over the clown, found it seemed to fit him as well as if it had grown upon his own shoulders. Though Oberon fixed the ass's head on very gently, it awakened him, and rising up, unconscious of what Oberon had done to him, the clown went towards the bower where the fairy queen slept. Ah, what angel is that I see, said Titania, opening her eyes, and the juice of the little purple flower began to take effect. Are you as wise as you are beautiful? Why, mistress, said the foolish clown, if I have wit enough to find the way out of this wood, I have enough to look out for myself. Out of the wood do not desire to go, said the adoring queen. I am no ordinary spirit. I love you. Go with me, and I will give you fairies to attend you. She then called 4 of her fairies. Their names were Peasbottom, Cobweb, Moth, and Mustard Seed. Said the queen, Attend this sweet gentleman, hop in his walks, and gambol in his sight. feed him with grapes and apricots, and steal for him the honey bags from the bees. Come, sit with me, said she to the clown, and let me caress your cheeks, my beautiful one, and kiss your fair large ears, my gentle joy. Where is Peasbottom? Said the ass-headed clown, not greatly excited about the fairy queen's courtship, but very proud of his new attendants. Here, sir, said little Peasbottom. Scratch my head, said the clown. Where is Cobweb? Here, sir, said Cobweb. Good, Mr. Cobweb, said the foolish clown. Kill me the red bee on the top of the thistle yonder, and, good Mr. Cobweb, bring me the honey bag. Do not fret yourself too much in doing it, Mr. Cobweb, and take care the honey bag break not. I should be sorry to have you drenched by a honey bag. Where's Mustard Seed? Here, sir, said Mustard Seed. What is your will? Nothing, said the clown, good Mr. Mustard Seed, but to help Mr. Peasbottom. Here, sir, said Mustard Seed. What is your will? Nothing, said the clown. Good Mr. Mustard Seed, but to help Mr. Peasblossom to scratch. I must go to a barber's, Mr. Mustard Seed, for methinks I am very hairy about the face. My sweet love, said the queen, what will you have to eat? I have a bold fairy who shall seek the squirrel's hoard and fetch you some new nuts. I had rather have a handful of dried peas, said the clown, who with his ass's head had got an ass's appetite. But, I pray, let none of your people disturb me, for I feel like sleeping. Sleep then, said the queen, and I will hold you in my arms. Oh, how I love you, how I dote upon you. When the fairy king saw the clown sleeping in the arms of his queen, he made his appearance, and reproached her with having lavished her favors upon an ass. This she could not deny, as the clown was then sleeping within her arms, with his ass's head crowned by her with flowers. When Oberon had teased her for some time, he again demanded the changeling boy, which she, ashamed of being discovered by her lord with her new favorite, did not dare to refuse him. Oberon, having thus obtained the little boy he had so long wished for to be his page, felt sorry for the disgraceful situation into which, by his merry trick, he had brought his Titania, and threw some of the juice of the other flower into her eyes. At this, the fairy queen immediately recovered her senses, and wondered at her late foolishness, saying how she now loathed the sight of the strange monster. Oberon likewise took the ass's head off the clown, and left him to finish his nap with his own fool's head upon his shoulders. Oberon and his Titania being now perfectly reconciled, he related to her the history of the lovers and their midnight quarrels, and she agreed to go with him and see the end of their adventures. The fairy king and queen found the lovers and their fair ladies at no great distance from each other, sleeping on a grass plot, for Puck, to make amends for his former mistake, had contrived with the utmost diligence to bring them all to the same spot, unknown to each other. He had also carefully removed the charm from the eyes of Lysander with the antidote the fairy king gave to him. Hermia awoke first, and finding her lost Lysander asleep so near her, kept looking at him and wondering at his strange faithlessness. Lysander, presently opening his eyes and seeing his dear Hermia recovered his reason, which the fairy charm had before clouded, and with his reason regained his love for Hermia. They then began to talk over the adventures of the night, doubting if these things had really happened, or if they had both been dreaming the same bewildering dream. Helena and Demetrius were by this time awake, a sweet sleep having quieted Helena's disturbed and angry spirits. She listened with delight to the vows of love which Demetrius still made to her, and which, to her surprise as well as pleasure, she began to perceive were sincere. These fair night wandering ladies, now no longer rivals, became once more true friends. All the unkind words which had passed were forgiven, and they calmly consulted on what was best to be done in their present situation. It was soon agreed that, as Demetrius had given up his claim upon Hermia, he should try to induce her father to revoke the cruel sentence of death which had been passed against her. Demetrius was preparing to return to Athens for this friendly purpose when they were surprised to see Aegeus, Hermia's father, who had come to the wood in pursuit of his runaway daughter. When Aegeus understood that Demetrius would not now marry his daughter, he no longer opposed her marriage with Lysander, but gave his consent that they should be wedded on the 4th day from that time, that being the same day on which Hermia had been condemned to lose her life. On that same day, Helena also joyfully agreed to marry her beloved and now faithful Demetrius. The fairy king and queen, who were invisible witnesses of this reconciliation, now saw the happy ending of the lovers' true story. The fairy king and queen, who were invisible witnesses of this reconciliation, now saw the happy ending of the lovers' story, brought about through the good offices of Oberon. So much pleasure did these kind spirits receive and revels throughout their fairy kingdom. And now, if any are offended with this story of fairies and their pranks, judging it incredible and strange, they have only to think that they have been asleep and dreaming, and that all these adventures were visions which they saw in their sleep. I hope none of my readers will go so unreasonable as to be offended with the pretty, harmless Midsummer Night's Dream.